And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here and around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So, to start off, our topic today is all about uh, Nintendo. Wait, I think there's a lag in the stream today. Let me check this first. Seems to be okay. Anyway, hope you can. How the stream is going smoothly. Yeah, wait. I think there's something wrong with the stream here. Okay, let's wait here. There you go. I think it's okay now, hopefully. Anyway, so it's running smoothly now. Hopefully. Anyway, so to start off, our first topic is about Nintendo. Now, for those who are familiar, especially if you're a gamer, obviously Nintendo is one of the key main players in the console wars between Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox consoles. And then you also have the PC for those gamers. Anyway, so for Nintendo, you might be surprised that typically when the games are initially released, they are selling, at retail price, typically around $60 to $70, depending on the type of games you're purchasing. Anyway, but as goes on, and typically if it's in the market for quite some time, typically months or even years, the price tends to drop. But not in the case in Nintendo here. And you might be surprised to find out, or for some of you already know, that the games, especially AAA games that Nintendo publishes, tend to be at a high premium or remains the same. So it tends to be quite expensive. And based on my personal experience, you would notice that games like Mario Odyssey is very expensive. I won't say expensive, still expensive in the sense that you're paying for full detail price despite being in the market for how many years. And some may say, is that fair or unfair for many users here? Wait here. Still a problem with the buffering here. Stream settings, normal latency. Wait, let me get back here. So let me check on the latency here. Anyway, I hope it's... Anyway, I can see what's the problem here. Hopefully it's running smoothly for everyone here. Anyway, continuing. So we were just talking about the price that Nintendo tends to maintain over the course of its lifespan. And based on my experience, I can attest that many of their AAA games that they publish, from Zelda to Mario Odyssey to even Mario Kart Deluxe or even Splatoon, and even the Super Mario Smash, sorry, are tend to be selling at retail price. And the question here is it worth the price for admission? And based on the data, as according to Nintendo themselves, that based on the demand, people are willing to pay for a premium price as long as they get the products that they are wanting to play. So let's take a closer look here. There we go. So as we can see here, an example here is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which was already launched way back in 2011. So that's, almost a decade ago that was released. And there you go. And obviously, they were able to sell for $50 retail price. And they released it in the Nintendo Switch console for a much higher price, for $60, right? One would seem that should be at the same price. But either way, their key strategy is to maintain the expensive first-party games that never get a price drop, which I was hoping to get when I purchased the Nintendo Switch a few years back. Hoping to be able to play the Mario Kart Deluxe, the Super Mario Odyssey, and whatnot. But the first game I bought was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I paid full price. But it was my first game, so I was willing to shell out. But thinking that future games, like how PC games provide discounts, Sony consoles provide discounts for the games, which was a money for value, especially if you're looking for bargains, but not in the case here for Nintendo. And obviously, if you're a consumer, you tend to feel like it feels somewhat wrong or unfair, but compared to other companies as mentioned. But technically, Nintendo's not being unfair according to the article, and it makes sense because Nintendo is not being unfair. They're just following the lead of their consumer. If Nintendo were to sell at a premium or sale at retail price and people still keep on buying your products, then good for you. Yeah, good for them, right? So they can maximize their revenue there. Now, whether that's fair or not, it's always up to the consumers to dictate later on. If it's expensive, then don't buy their products, right? And it will indicate to Nintendo that maybe they should reduce the price. But as the case seems here, especially from last year, showing that people would pay full price, even if it's a newly launched game or even an older game, that people are willing to pay for a product that they're interested in. And just to give you an example here, so one of the popular games here, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which I haven't played. I'm still hoping for a great bargain, whether online or buying the cartridge themselves, have already sold 33 million copies since its launch. So obviously, if you're Nintendo, that's a staggering windfall that generates you millions or even billions of dollars of revenue here. And it's still a game seller up to today. So meaning there's a lot of people who are buying the consoles, interested in buying, especially Mario Kart is a multiplayer game. You can play it single player mode, but it's for you can play with other people, which make it compelling that I've used to play in the Super Nintendo system before and now in the Switch, so it makes sense that it's a very popular game here. And just to show you what I mean here, let me give you an example of how their strategy tends to hold over time. So looking at Wikipedia's, looking at the best-selling games, video games of all time, you might be surprised to find several of the top-performing games of all time is Nintendo published games. So if you were to look here, you can see that Minecraft is number 1, which is developed by Mahjong Studios. Then number 2, you have Rockstar, which sold over 100 million copies. Then you have Tetris at number 3. Then look at number 4. You have Wii Sports, which is published by Nintendo, selling over 80 million units. Then you have PUBG, 70 million. But look at number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. All of those games comes from the Nintendo platform. So it just goes to show you how popular games are, especially loyal players or who've been playing way back in the Super Famicom days all the way to the present here. So it goes to show that people are willing to pay for a very good game or a great game in this case, or a great product here. And you can even see that in the top 20, many of the games are still published by Nintendo. So you have Mario Kart Wii, which was published 2008, so more than a decade ago. You have Wii Sports Resort. You also have Animal Crossing New Horizon, which sold more than 31 million copies already worldwide. And you have New Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. Wii. And that's just the top 20. And you notice here, very few games from Sony or even in Microsoft is in the top 10 or even the top 20 list here. So it just goes to show that the platform or the business model that Nintendo is implementing is working for them. So question is, will it be prolonged in the foreseeable future? Time can only tell. But the way it is, it works for them, then so be it. Now, obviously, Nintendo games are expensive as mentioned, and even people or some people may hate it, but at the end of the day, people are still buying at retail prices here. And they have gotten used to expensive games, which is, I was still hoping at some point that, the prices will drop eventually, but, that's not the case here. So, as mentioned, especially on social media, there was a joke that was mentioned that it was called a switch tax because prices even for older games are still paid at a premium price here. Obviously, the rationale here is some may say that because some games like, for example, Doom or The Witcher 3 game is ported, from other consoles, so that they have to spend, you know, develop it to tailor fit for the Switch console, they have to pay a premium here. But if it makes sense, maybe not, if it's worth it. But for first party games like for Nintendo, the Mario games and such, Nintendo has built up enough cachet in a sense that, if you're a loyal Nintendo, game lover in a sense, you expect that that you're going to pay a premium price. Similar if you're, let's say, an Apple user, that you're paying a premium for the brand itself. So whether you take it or leave it in a sense. So even though some people may not like it, but if it works, it makes sense for them, then then that trend will continue here. And at the end of the day, the consumers have spoken with their wallets. If people keep on buying the products, the business will continue their business model here. So unless we change our behavior or our preferences, then that's not going to change anytime soon here. Even though it feels wrong in a sense or unfair, is it unethical? Not really in terms of business sense, right? But the data at the end of the day, as mentioned here, is, it's crystal clear. It does not lie. And for Nintendo, it's printing money, nothing like before. So they will continue with this trend moving forward. Sticking with games here, so one of the more popular games in PC in this case is going to be resurrected coming this year according to PC Gamer here. So one of the most beloved games, which I haven't played to be honest, is Diablo here. Diablo 2 to be exact. It's going to be resurrected in terms of a new remaster of the classic action RPG here. So Diablo 2 was a very important game to Blizzard. According to the Diablo chief, Rod Ferguson, who defined the ARPG genre here. And it's already celebrating its 20th anniversary last year. And Blizzard's 30th anniversary this year. So trying to find ways to rehash the glory days, so to speak. So they're introducing the Diablo Immortal and Diablo 4, but also reintroducing what made them popular in the first place here. So let's see here. So as mentioned, so obviously what they're going to introduce here is not just the game itself, by providing a upgrade in terms of graphics, by providing 4K support, so better graphic fidelity, and improve refresh rate, so up to 144 Hz, so for smoother transitions and so forth. And obviously, it's not going to be totally exactly the same as the previous one, but it will make some improvements, such as you can flip back and forth to the old graphics style if you prefer, or to the new one. And then there's going to be a new 3D engine called the Diablo 2 Resurrected that runs on the old game's code. So you can switch back and forth which way you prefer. So if you prefer the classic one, or would you prefer the new and enhanced one? So it's up to you. Now, obviously, the audio here is going to be remastered for Dolby 7.1 for better enhanced experience in a sense. So you'll be using the same recordings from the original game. So something to look forward here. And obviously, a few new quality of life additions. Obviously, if you're just going to port the same type of same game from the old one to the new one, doesn't make a compelling case. Obviously, you have to make some revisions in a sense, similar how Square Enix tried to remake the popular Final Fantasy VII series. So they cannot just simply copy the old one and just expect that people would buy it. You know, what's the point here? But for this case, they're hoping to have the same success as they did before. So in terms of life additions, they're going to include shared items, stash for all characters to pull from, and also auto looting here. So if you're a gamer, a PC gamer at that, and if you've been playing Diablo 2 before, guess that's going to consume a lot of your time and energy for the foreseeable future here. So the expected arrival is coming to the PC and other consoles as well sometime later in 2021. So that's later this year. And the cross-platform progression is going to be announced sometime later this year as well. And if you're a PC gamer, you can expect the retail price to sell at $40 here. So it's not that expensive. Is it worth $40? So we have to wait and see for the reviews if the game holds up 20 years later. Next we have here, so continuing with the gaming industry here. Now, if you've been listening from our previous discussions before, you've heard, you know, the battle between Epic versus the Apple for the issue regarding Fortnite issue here. Well, guess what? There's a new angle that was, you know, recently discussed according to arstechnica.com. We're involved. The creators of the Steam platform for PC games is dragged into the legal fight between the two companies as mentioned. So what Apple is stipulating here that it's trying to subpoena Steam's information regarding PC game sales, as it is crucial to the case regarding the Epic Games have a case regarding what it's trying to contest regarding the legality, unfair practices of Apple of leveraging, of asking people to pay a 30% fee for all transactions here. Now, whether that's valid or not, that's the court for to decide. But the surprise here is why was Valve here involved? So let's see here. Okay. Yes, as mentioned. So in the contention here, Apple is asking for a subpoena for Valve to provide two key documents here. So first is to provide total yearly sales of apps and in-app products. So what people purchase in their app store, or in this case in Steam, and then provide annual advertising revenue from Steam, as well as annual sales of external products attributable to Steam. Then also provide annual revenues from Steam and annual earnings from Steam as well. And also, Apple is also asking, or not asking, wanting to get the name of each app on Steam, the data range when the app was available on Steam, and the price of the app, and any in-app product available on Steam. Now, obviously, if your Steam here, you know, I won't say caught of surprise, but, you know, obviously you do not want to provide any critical data that is detrimental to your business model here. And one of the key contentions here is, especially for Apple, they're stating that it is important to provide those information so that they can establish that other platforms like Steam, as mentioned, may be economic substitutes to iOS App Store, which is distributing Fortnite. Well, we'll discuss the details in a bit. And then they're also stating that Valve's information is crucial for calculating the total size of the market for Epic, available digital distribution channels, according to Apple. But on the other hand, Valve is arguing that Steam is unrelated to the battle between Apple and Epic here, because Valve does not make or sell phones like Apple does, or even make tablets or video games per se for mobile devices, or otherwise compete in the mobile market. Valve is only primarily a platform for PC gamers here, so that's one of their key contention. And what's more interesting here is Fortnite is not available on Steam. And according to Epic themselves, has publicly and unequivocally stated it will not offer Fortnite on Steam. So, so it goes back to the main question: does Valve has any stake in the any reason to be get involved in the situation, the battle between the two companies, as mentioned here? And obviously, one of the key contentions for Valve is protecting its private data. The fact that Valve is a privately held company, not a publicly listed like Apple and Epic Games here. Obviously, Valve is making a contention that, if you're talking of competition or substitutes for Apple App Store is the Google Play Store. So why not get the information from those competing companies, say like with Samsung as well. And as mentioned, the reason for staying a private company is a key strategic decision so that they can avoid the burden of public company disclosures like the case that Apple is in right now, and reporting requirements that companies like Samsung, Google's are subject to. So obviously they're keeping, it's important that they hold the key financial figures in terms of sales, who buys, what they prefer, all of those nitty details or data information that they are collecting when people are logged in their platform here. And obviously for Apple, they're still arguing that that any confidential or sensitive competitive information provided by Valve could be covered by protective order. But again, there's no guarantees, right? And that should give Apple a competitive advantage, knowing what Steam is capable and how big of a market share that they own in the industry here. And obviously, they're stating that there's no substantial risk, but I guess Valve beg to disagree in that one. And obviously, Valve is somewhat is focused primarily for PC games alone and does not compete in the mobile market, which is what Apple is in right now. So how this saga goes and how it turns out, it will be interesting. But I think Apple is trying to fish here to get key informations and take advantage of certain situations with the current battle between Epic and Apple here. But it's an ongoing saga that the two companies, have to settle it amongst themselves. Anyway, continuing with big tech companies. So we've been discussing major tech companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, or even Google and Apple are big tech companies that, they're being perceived as anti-competitive because they are trying to eat up as much of the market as possible to be a monopoly in their industry, so to speak. And what's interesting here, a company here, Nvidia, who's known for making GPUs or graphic cards, is buying a company that provides chips for many of these competitive companies. So Nvidia is trying to buy ARM, and when it was reported, guess what? Many of the companies that uses ARM technologies such as Qualcomm, Google, as well as Microsoft are not too happy about it. And obviously they should be concerned because if Nvidia were allowed to purchase ARM, the company itself, there may be repercussions because ARM technology is embedded in many of our technologies right now. So if it's not using AMD chips or even Intel, it's more likely using ARM technologies here or chipset here, especially for Qualcomm. So all of your mobile phones, whether it's Samsung or Apple, they're using Qualcomm chips. So that's how you know ARM is the one providing the architecture. But what's interesting for ARM as a company, they are willing to license their proprietary technologies to other companies to develop, which in turn provides them a feedback loop, as mentioned here, to provide better product and innovate at the same time, so to give them a competitive advantage. And what's interesting, ARM is not just in providing microchip here or chips for different companies. They also provide a wide variety of services to other companies here. So as mentioned, the companies that are not for buying ARM here is Apple's mentioned, Samsung, Intel, AMD, Amazon, and MediaTek, and Huawei. So there are a lot of companies here. So Let's see here. There you go. So as mentioned, so one of the most adamant here that the acquisition has to be blocked is Qualcomm. Now, it believes that it could lead to Nvidia gatekeeping or limiting the growth or the access to ARM's intellectual property here. And one of the key attributes that ARM is providing all these past few years is they are called the enabler of competition, meaning their business model is unique to other companies where they are allowed to provide their products through licensing fees, as mentioned, whether big or small, to create a feedback loop that leads to a continuous improvement of its chip design and a healthy ecosystem, both for standard and custom processors for a variety of applications here. Now, obviously, what Nvidia is saying right now is it plans to open the licensing model or continue what it's been doing. But obviously, the concern here, Nvidia has its own agenda because if you were to look at its architecture here, so let's take a closer look here. What was it? Yeah, let's see here. You can see here. Yeah, there you go. Let's take a closer look here. So you can clearly see here. So Nvidia on the right side here is, providing different aspects. So in terms of gaming, healthcare, transportation, robotics, and so forth, right? So they're involved in the architecture design, system design, and data center. Okay, obviously they want to expand their reach, and buying ARM would help their cost there. But if you look at ARM here at the left side, so they provide CPU ecosystems to different aspects, different categories here. From client side, so you can see Qualcomm, Samsung, you have EA here, many big companies, and even Microsoft is one of their key clients here. So guess what if Nvidia has control of ARM? So they will be able to technically control how the products is being delivered to their key customers. And they're not only focused on those key clients, but they also focus on infrastructure. So you can see here, Amazon's Web Services is one of their key products here. Then you also have IoT, Internet of Things. So you can see here, Dolby is using their technology. Then you have automotive here as well. So ARM's reach is very wide and vast here. So letting a company, like Nvidia here, I would say take advantage, but buy it up outright could have repercussions in the market or in the industry in the future. So the government has to take a closer look here whether they should allow this venture or partnership or for Nvidia to be able to buy the company here. But it's an ongoing process, so we still have to wait and see here. Now, obviously, according to Nvidia, they're insisting that they would only help grow the business. And obviously, ARM's reach is growing, as mentioned here. And obviously, for the companies, like I mentioned, for Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and even AMD are currently developing their own silicon-based, which is based on ARM design. So if Nvidia were to suddenly acquire ARM, there can be a repercussion in terms of pricing, the direction of they'll be limited in terms of using maybe Intel chips, which is years behind, is behind now, or even AMD processors here. So it's important especially for startups. It's very important that they have free access to the ARM's chips portfolio so that it can continue provide hardware innovations here. So what happens next? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, so continuing with sports here. Now, if you're interested in playing sports, now there are many, many leagues that are reopened since the pandemic from last year, from NFL, which has recently finished its season, which still draws a lot of people. Based on the data from the last Super Bowl, 100 million people or over 100 million people are still watching one of the, favorite pastimes for Americans. And the league is now asking for 100% increase on its TV rights from its partner TV rights to many companies such as NBC, CBS, Fox, and ESPN. Now, does NFL has a right to suddenly jack up the price? Now, obviously, their partnership here is the contract runs for about a decade. So it's from 2011 when it started, and it finished up this year. That's why they're trying to renew and asking for a pay raise in a sense. And the rights to air games is in the billions here. So for each year that they are obligated to air those games, so it's a very lucrative, market, especially for the NFL, which is, reaping tens of billions of dollars in terms of revenue here. But obviously, one of the big TV companies like ESPN, which is owned by Disney, by the way, is citing that the high price for the price tag that they're asking for, almost 100% increase, which they're already paying a big amount. So I think they've already agreed to pay almost $2 billion. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, it's here. So they've already agreed to pay almost $2 billion for the right to air the Monday Night Football from 2011 all the way to 2021. So asking 100%, so they'll be paying almost $4 billion. And that dwarfs the cost for other companies or for other TV outfits, from Fox, which only pays 1.1 billion, for CBS 1 billion, and for NBC's Sunday Night Football, which pays $900 million per year. So you could just imagine, you add it all up, so they typically earn 4 to 6 billion yearly in terms of TV rights alone. But the question here is, do they have the right to increase the price based on the demand here? And obviously the price tag alone is, kind of steep, and Disney, according to the article, is rejecting paying anywhere close to 4 billion here. So the question here is, the game still a sought after, alternative from watching other TV shows here? So, but according to statistics here, the top 5 broadcasts from 2020 last year, you'll be surprised to find out that it's all NFL games here, from the Super Bowl all the way to the championship, and I think it's regular season here. So let's take a closer look. Yeah, so the top rated shows for 2020 or last year is, it's not Jeopardy or not Game of Thrones or NCIS, but it's an NFL football game. So let's see here. Where was it? There you go. So according to last year, the most watched primetime telecast of 2020, total viewers, so you can see here. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Championship, I think it wasn't mentioned here yet. But in terms of the Super Bowl for the Chiefs and 49ers, so that was the year before, it was watched by more than 100 million viewers. So, there's a lot of people watching it. So whether in United States or in abroad. And then if you look at the second, third, fourth, or even the fifth top watch telecast, it's all NFL football games here. So meaning a lot of people are watching those games on a weekly basis, despite having only used to be, I think, 13 games, now 15 games. So all in all, you can have a maximum of 20 weeks of football, and then after that it ends in another season, following season again. But one key information that was mentioned here in the article, which is interesting, despite high viewership in totality, but the key demographic that obviously for many advertisers who's trying to sell you a product or services, the key demographic of 18 to 49 years old is on a decade-long decline, meaning there are less and less younger audiences who are watching the games here. Now, whether it's politically related or is it just preferences, again, another data that is being shown here. So let's see here. So in terms of this another related article, that the Super Bowl is losing viewers under 50. Now, is it reflected because of the American media being fragmented, or is it just the preferences of, there's so many things to watch online or on TV that, people are watching less and less of the Super Bowl? So let's see here. Yeah, so here's one of the key demographic here. So you can see here at the start, from way back in 2011, so the viewership of the 18 to 49 age range is more than 52 million people, right? And as you can see, as the years pass by from 2012 all the way to the present here, which is the championship between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, there's a slight reduction. Almost 20 million viewers are watching less compared to a decade earlier here. So is it a sign of people are watching something else altogether? Or is there a problem with the product itself? Or is it an anomaly here? Because obviously in 2020, you have the pandemic here. So you can visibly understand that why the steep decline, on a year-to-year basis here. But overall, if you were to look at the trend, there has been a slowly declining trend in terms of, the young audiences are watching the TV. Are they still interested in watching football games here? Maybe they want to watch basketball games, soccer, or maybe watch some Netflix or something else altogether here. Which begs us to ask the question we were talking about earlier. So does the NFL have the right to ask for more money for the TV rights to be able to, show the NFL games here? Now, obviously, I think Disney is or ESPN is trying to negotiate the deal for a lower price. But at the end of the day, despite the lower Super Bowl ratings for the younger audience, a lot of people are still watching it. There's a lot of eyeballs here. That's why, if you notice, during the Super Bowl, the commercials are at a high premium. Companies are willing to pay millions and millions of dollars. I think for a 30-second spot in the Super Bowl, you can pay as much as 1 million to 5 or even more. And you can just imagine, obviously, 100 million are watching those commercials, and obviously you can recoup those investment in the long run here. But with the exception of the pandemic last year, but if the trend continues, would it be viable for any company to advertise during the Super Bowl still? And we have to wait and see. But again, at the end of the day, for those big TV companies, whether it's ABC or NBC or even ESPN, obviously negotiating is their right. But at the end of the day, is NFL still the best sports to be watched on a weekly basis? I think it continues to until the data changes otherwise. Anyway, some tech news here. So we were talking about Apple's problems with Epic here, but on the other hand, if you notice, we haven't been hearing lately how Huawei is doing in terms of their performance since the being blacklisted in terms of being able to get significant technologies, whether it's the chips from American companies or even the software from Google's Play Store and so forth. So what can a company like Huawei do? Will they just pack up and leave and so forth? Well, guess what? According to the article here, Huawei is expanding its businesses, and you'd be surprised as to what type of business they're up to. Apart from smartphones, they're going into pig farming here. And I was surprised when I first read the article here. Now, obviously, with the US sanctions as mentioned, it has hampered their smartphone business growth here. And they can only sustain it by focusing primarily in their domestic market, which is in China here. So what else can they do here? So they've turned to pig farming in order to be able to use its AI technology so that they can keep track and identify of their animals here. Now, obviously, technology has a wider reach, not just in terms of smartphone, but in different industries as well. And obviously, Huawei is using that leverage to keep them afloat, hoping maybe years or even decades down the line, the situation with the smartphone problem would dissipate or would be remedied in the long run here. So let's see here. Where was it? There you go. So if you can see here, so Huawei's problem here is shifting to a, out of the blue, a different industry altogether, right? But, if it works, keeps them afloat, why not? And based on their performance here, they have to pivot, quickly. Otherwise, they'll, they would go with the likes of how Nokia or even, what was the company? BlackBerry, diba? How they started and where they are now. You can find them anymore, even if you wanted to. So if you were to look at the data here, so you can see here, from 2020 alone, and let's start with 2019 first. So 2019, you have Apple at number one with almost 20% market share, Samsung at 18%, and then Huawei still has 15%. So they're number three in the market, right? So being able to sell 56, almost 60 million units worldwide. But compared that to that last year, quarter four, it has significantly declined, and Xiaomi has already overtaken them, and Huawei is now on the same boat as Oppo with only have 8% share in the market. And you can see here the start decline from Huawei from 56 to 32 million, almost 50% of reduction. So obviously the smartphone sales is not going to help their cost in the long run here, but the question is, what can they do? So turning into pig farming is the best way, and good for them. But the question is, what will happen to their smartphone division here? Will they be able to keep it afloat, or will it suffer like when they sold their what was their other brand? Honor, I think it's the Honor brand. I think they sold it already. But anyway, so at the end, so Huawei's AI technology helps farmers detect diseases and tracks the hogs. Now, facial recognition can identify individual animals here, similar to how people works, but it's kind of interesting. Can you differentiate one animal to the another? Anyway, so what they do here is they use technology to monitor the weight, diet, exercise, so they can ensure the health of their products, in this case, the pigs here. So obviously, they can improve the safety, efficiency of other industries such as the coal mining business as well here. So keep you updated as to what's the status of Huawei here in the long run here. Anyway, finally, for some interesting stories. So here, in terms of, has the future arrived? Now, there are many things that we have been seeing in movies in years and decades past that, has it arrived yet? And I think one of the technologies that, I'm going to show you next year is kind of interesting, that you think that it would be decades away still, but some of the technologies are already here, and it would be interesting to see how it can be implemented in other industries for other products as well. So, or was it here? So what I'm talking about is the floating holographic buttons to promise now. Of all places, it's in Japan who's offering holographic buttons for Japanese toilets here. Now, obviously, if you've been to Japan, they use a very highly advanced technology in terms of going to the bathroom and so forth. But obviously, with the pandemic that's happening, you want to avoid any contact with any devices or surfaces here, and introducing this holographic button provides some solution here. And what's interesting here is, it's elevating in a sense, right? So how they do this is, let's see here. So you can see the screen here, it's like elevating. So you just have to press it. And how are they able to do it? It's very interesting. And it would be interesting to apply this in other industries or other products as well. So you can just imagine a smartphone, or maybe even a computer, your desktop is floating already. You don't have a physical keyboard anymore when you're typing or using your computers here. So the technology behind it works like this. So you can see here, as an observer, you can see the device. You see the floating image, which is used by a parity mirror, which is reflected from the real object light source, so that it gives us the illusion of a floating touchscreen in a sense here. And obviously, when it comes to innovation, if this can be implemented with other products, you can just imagine for all our devices, whether it's in our elevators, touching buttons, or paying for cash in, let's say, your ATMs, or as I mentioned earlier, with your keyboard, it's keyboardless. So there's a lot of interesting applications, especially for vehicles as well. So you could just imagine the potentiality here, and I'd be interested to see where this technology will lead us, and hopefully to ensure the safe, the limitation of the what do you call this, the spread of the virus here. But with the technology, innovation is always key here for any companies to move to the next century and beyond. And I'm always excited